Chapter 3: The special nature of qualitative research. Qualitative research emphasizes a. Discovery, b. Broadly defined goals, c. Flexible research questions, d. Emergent contents, a. Generation of hypotheses, and f. Credibility. It can be understood in terms of its understanding of reality, the kinds of questions it examines, and the methods used to find answers to the questions. Qualitative research is largely inductive and flexible in nature, whereas quantitative research is mainly deductive and positivistic. Qualitative methodology raises particular problems for researchers, largely connected with rigor, and relies heavily on special criteria of validity such as soundness of reasoning or plausibility of conclusions. Some researchers turn to qualitative methods because they expect them to be easier than quantitative methods. However, qualitative research makes special personal demands on researchers that are different from those of quantitative approaches. For example, the ability to elicit personal accounts from participants or the ability to think inductively. In addition, it raises special ethical issues, because it not infrequently asks participants to reveal how they construct personally significant or even painful events. The essence of the qualitative approach. As Hollis, 1994, put it, the qualitative approach seeks to understand phenomena, whereas the quantitative approach seeks to explain them. The qualitative approach can be understood in terms of three dimensions: its ontology, i.e., the way in which reality is understood; its epistemology, i.e., the kinds of questions it regards as important; and its methodology, i.e., the procedures it employs for answering the questions just mentioned. The qualitative approach differs from the quantitative in the following way. Observing one or more people in a real-life setting and recording what happens are actively eliciting descriptions of real life from people, for instance by means of interviews. These descriptions are almost always verbal, very frequently spoken, and are often referred to as narratives. Recording what the people say or write, or how they behave. This often involves a written text, even when the original record consisted of audio or videotapes. Interpreting what the people said. From the point of view of the present book, the purpose of this interpretation is to use the concepts of a particular discipline such as sociology or psychology to understand what was observed and recorded in the steps already outlined. The results of this step constitute the findings of the research. Generalizing these interpretations by relating them to other people or settings, or to existing theory, or both. This step yields the conclusions of the study. The special properties of qualitative research. Non-experimental designs. As a rule, qualitative studies are not experimental but descriptive, and are carried out under conditions that resemble the everyday life of the people involved, not for instance in a laboratory. Qualitative designs focus on optimizing the external validity of findings, whereas quantitative approaches emphasize internal validity. Flexibility. In traditional quantitative research, the research question is always derived from existing theory. Researchers study what is already known from earlier findings, and formulate a formal hypothesis on the basis of this material. This hypothesis is then tested, using an appropriate design and objective measurement procedures, frequently tests, scales or instruments of some kind, and statistical tests. The purpose is to test whether the hypothesis derived from earlier findings can be transferred to a new setting and confirmed as applying thereto. Without existing knowledge and appropriate theory about the issue being investigated, there would be no hypothesis and, as a consequence, no research study. The basic principles of qualitative research. Research question. In qualitative research, it is important to investigate questions involving the intentions and purposes of people. The why, how, and what kind are important when looking at social science phenomena, not just how much. The latter question, how much, is the domain of quantitative methods. Philosophy of research. In order to increase knowledge, research focuses on people's direct experience with their immediate, everyday world, and proceeds through stages of a. Recording participants' narratives, b. Description of what they say in terms of discipline-based concepts, and c. Explanation of what this means for theory in the particular discipline. Method of gathering data. People's experience of the world and their relationship to it can best be investigated by allowing them to describe these phenomena as they themselves experience them. In other words, some kind of narrative of the people being investigated is needed. The dominant form of narrative is the interview, although the extent of its dominance varies from discipline to discipline. Roles of researcher and subject. The people who are often referred to in quantitative studies as subjects then become partners with the researcher in the reconstruction of their own experiences and their ways of understanding them. These people are referred to in this book as participants or respondents. Data analysis. The fundamental task of the analysis is to interpret the narratives, i.e., to work out their meaning. As a rule, the researcher makes a protocol of respondents' narratives and uses these, A, to describe the situation of the participants and B, to work out the implications of the narratives for relevant theory. Examples of qualitative research questions. Why do affluent, successful people emigrate from rich, highly developed countries? How do drivers experience their interactions with other participants in road traffic? How do parents of emotionally disturbed children conceptualize their situation? What does it feel like to be a gifted child? What factors in the workplace encourage or inhibit creativity? What aspects of their work are especially stressful for social workers? Why do qualitative research? In the qualitative approach, the relationship between the researcher and the person being studied is different from the quantitative approach. In this sense, qualitative methods are more human. They involve trusting relationships between people, willing cooperation, and the like. In the qualitative approach, technical requirements of design are usually less stringent, e.g., sampling, control of confounding variables, reliability and validity of instruments, technical quality of data such as parametric vs non-parametric, and so on. Harsh reality. However, the romantic and labor-saving views of qualitative methods do not take account of several issues that need to be raised here. Briefly summarized, it can be said that qualitative methods require hard work, as well as courage, trust in oneself, and determination. They also require a high level of knowledge. There are a number of reasons for this. 1. Qualitative methods often require lengthy contact with respondents who must be convinced to sacrifice their time. 1. Outside the researcher's circle of family and friends, this may not be easy. 2. It may be necessary to spend a good deal of time in fairly intimate contact with people who are not particularly pleasant company. 3. The respondents may be asked to reveal themselves freely to the researcher. 3. This may include information that is painful to them. 3. Such situations require special personal properties in the researcher. See below for a more detailed discussion of these properties. 4. Qualitative research raises important ethical questions. 4. For instance, discussing suicidal ideation in an interview with a severely depressed respondent might trigger suicidal behavior if the respondent was simply abandoned at the end of the interview. 5. Qualitative methods involve data collection and transcription procedures that require meticulous record keeping, are often extremely time-consuming, and may even become tedious. 5. Much the same may be said of data analysis procedures. 5. All these steps in the research process are of necessity usually carried out by researchers themselves, not for instance by typists or computer programs. 6. Qualitative approaches raise special problems for reporting both procedures and findings. 6. In writing a thesis or dissertation, students may have to forsake tried and trusted structures and devise their own. 7. There are thorny issues involving the reliability and validity of knowledge obtained through qualitative approaches. 8. The outcomes of qualitative research are often unclear until a very large amount of effort has been expended. These issues may be summarized by saying that qualitative research methods are far from cut and dried and far from offering the easy alternative some research students hope for. Indeed, as Denson and Lincoln, 2017, page 11, put it, they are often messy and uncertain. However, provided that this is accepted from the start, with sufficient effort all the problems just mentioned can be surmounted. Who is qualified to do qualitative research? Special knowledge of the field, especially of the basic concepts psychologists have developed to understand it. In quantitative approaches, the theoretical, conceptual framework and hypotheses, i.e., the research questions, have usually been worked out and specified beforehand, largely by other people. Qualitative studies require inductive thinking to generate new structures. The researcher's own personality to adapt oneself and inspire trust in others. An ethical attitude is important and may be particularly important in clinical research.